morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss pre-market video for Monday, October 13th, 2025. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Happy Monday, everyone. For PivotBoss Masters members, it is live sessions week. Go to pivotbossmasters.com/profits if you're not yet a member of PivotBoss Masters. This week, here's our Masters live training schedule here. Starts at 3 o'clock p.m. Central. The Zoom webinar link has already been provided in the member dashboard. For those of you that are not yet a member, go to pivotbossmasters.com/profits. Our newest proprietary offering is the PivotBoss Thrust Reversal Pro. This is a tremendous signal here, a ton of built-in capabilities here. Tremendous. You can read more about it here at pivotbossmasters.com/profits. Again, here's the live training schedule for the week. Begins today at 3 p.m. Central Time. And again, you can go to your member dashboard and access the webinar link, in addition to all of the downloads and PDFs, and all of that will be provided by the time we are ready to rock and roll. So again, go to pivotbossmasters.com/profits to learn more. All right, let's take a look here at the ES. This is the daily time frame now. Big time drop that we've seen here lately on a Friday. That was significant. Huge news there. Obviously, the Trump tariff news there. And for the most part, what we've seen was a big time continuation to the downside through those lows. Now, we mentioned that morning in the pre-market video that this narrow range here was likely going to provide some big time movement. 170 to 200 points of juice was in that range. Obviously, everything has still been pointing up, so the idea was maybe if we got a drop down, we'd rally. Obviously, we got a big time break and a continuation, a major meltdown. When we look at the sell-off now from the high of the day to the low of the day, we have now reached the midpoint. That is now a new key range for this market, and that range will be very important because it can forecast now how far we go. I'll put a key range there. We'll have the exact measurements down the way, but basically it's the 100% extension on either side of this day's range, and that is going to be significant because what happens here is that could be the initial shock. We could be kind of range bound a little bit here in the middle, and then we start to make a move to the 100% extension, perhaps to the downside, maybe back up. Depends on how this thing shakes out. But again, this is going to be the key range to watch. For today, range bound price action, but with a downward bias after that sell-off, obviously. Any pullback right now could be defended here as this thing maintains kind of a bearish bias, unless this thing can start to recover that 67.25, 67.50 zone. You know, can it start to recover back up? All right, looking at the NQ here, again, major violation of market structure, a major sell-off. That is also a new key range after reaching the midpoint after the sell-off here. A new large key range. That's a big one. It's a big key range, you know, 1,200 points or so easy. And that would point you down to about 23,000 back down here. Just fuzzy math right there. So are we headed down for another leg? If so, maybe there's a little bit of build out here before we head lower. But again, this market has been very resilient. And when it comes to something like this, that Trump tariffs and China and all that, it can drive things down until there's a quick solution that drives it right back up very quickly. So we'll see what this varietal looks like, but that's the key range to watch, and it could be significant here to the next directional target. So watching the boundaries of that key range very closely. All right, looking at crude oil, this one's up 0.8% right now. Massive sell-off as well on a Friday. It finally filled the 58.20 FOMC key level. Well, I guess technically it did not. The low on Friday, 58.22. 58.20 is the FOMC key level. This is a level we've been talking about for a while right here that needs to be filled at some point. Thought it would be filled early, thought it would be filled later, and later and later. It just hasn't happened, and finally getting, I guess, for all intents and purposes, filled. That was a big-time meltdown. And as we've talked about before, this market trades in about 10-point increments on the fours. 64 is one increment, 74 is the next. To fail at 64 here recently finally has opened up the potential to drop into the 54s. And the 54s have been reserved for only very few instances here lately. It's that last piece of the pie here. Are we about to head into 54 territory? If so, 54 could finally breed a little bit of a move back up at some point. But again, we're in that bearish seasonal cycle right now where things could get worse heading into December before they get a little bit better. But where will the low be? Again, 54 in that zone. You can see the significant LVN, CLVN right there. Are we headed into that zone after breaking down from this range? Any pullback could still be a selling opportunity as we head lower. All right, looking at gold futures, up 2.4%. Almost 4,800 right now. It did hit 4105.60 a little earlier, but a massive, massive continuation to the upside. This thing just continues to rip. We talked on this day that the 3-day move might be done and we might go sideways for the next 2 or 3 days. That was it. It was just 2 days, and now ripping to the upside. As we've talked about before, this is not a market really to counter trend fade, but after every pullback, it's been a buying opportunity. And it's in can't stop, won't stop mode right now until we see that big day. That was a big day, but it wasn't big enough to trigger further downside price action. Instead, it bounced right off the 8-period average, which is a high intensity bullish move. So this thing remains highly bullish here. At some point, we'll find a high. I've mentioned before the fact that we've now reached 4,000 here opens up the next zone above, which could be as high as 4250 here now. 4,000 was the 500-point target estimation from 35. The next 500 points is into 4,500, and normally, if you know, you're going to go get halfway up. If you're still working your way up, you're going to go get halfway up, maybe build, and then go get the next half at the next upside market structure. So 4250 could be an easy continuation target for now, as this thing continues to demonstrate tremendous strength. Looking at the YM, I did put up a key range for the YM already, and this is based off of Friday's range. There's your high, there's your low. It's built on the intraday, and there's your midpoint now. Now, recall I did have this intraday key range, and I talked about the instability of that movement up here and how that suggests weakness up ahead. We talked about the potential to go get that downside target at 46,231 and then into this low into 46K. So we had that potential here several days ago in this bearish price action, and we noted the strong rejection day after day after day after day. And on this day, we mentioned the next 2 days could be down. Now, nobody can forecast this severity of weakness that we saw, but we can kind of see the tea leaves ahead of time that it could be lower. Now, this was well through the 46K level. Initially, the thought was if we get into 46, that might provide a bounce, but if we fail at 46, 45 could be ahead. So what's next? Now, in terms of the key range, this is the key range right there. Great key range right there. And that key range could give us the next targets above and or below. And below is right down here at 43,900. 43,900 is the 100% target here, and that is in line with the November 7th FOMC key level. It's a bounce point here that we've seen previously as well, right here. So that's 43.9, and that makes sense market structure wise. So that key range right there, if we follow a little bit lower, could get us to 43.9 at the very least. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. Down the road, do we get an upside push? Then 48,379 would be that target. Market structure wise, we've talked 47, and that's what I said right here. It's either 47 to 49 or 47 to 45, and the way we've been looking, I'm thinking this way. But again, very aggressive day. How do we proceed from there? The key range is going to guide us in a big way. Looking at Bitcoin, Bitcoin's down about 1.6% right now. This one got tremendously hit. On this day right here, we mentioned, did we just reject 125K? Is this a rejection? On this day, we mentioned, is that a retest of the rejection? This is looking bearish. And each day from there, we mentioned that that rejection here could spell a move back to the middle of the range, maybe back across the range toward 108 or even lower. Again, nobody can forecast the severity of that move, but we were watching already for rejection several days ahead of time at this zone, despite the move up. And we quantified this move up and how often it turns afterwards, despite the strength, when price has already established a trading range. We were ahead of that one. Again, a much quicker move back down. Now, if we drop a bit lower, how do we respond on the way back up? We're right in the middle of the range. Needs a bit lower to see if we can get a good, clean reaction. Looking at ETH, this one's up 2.9% right now on a bounce back up, but this one got crushed significantly. Recall, we mentioned how tremendous the 4,800 rejection was. Look at that thrust reversal right now. By the way, new and improved signal here of the thrust reversal pro that we are teaching in the masters session here later on this afternoon and providing to our masters members. And that's our traditional one right there. We developed this for masters a while back. We're improving it now, and look at how it's defined the highs the last go round. Big time drop, big time move against the range. That's something we talked about as well. Is this the low end? Do we need lower? This is clearly the range. This is clearly an impulsive move. We're back to the middle. We got a key range here. We got a tremendous range here. In the range for now, but clearly something to keep an eye on. All right, that is it for now. We'll see how this plays out here heading into the new week of trading. Do me a favor, please give me a like, a big thumbs up here, and let's rock and roll here later on in PivotBoss Masters live sessions later on this afternoon. Good to see everyone this week. We'll see you in the trader room. Take care.